Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
There we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. We're delighted you're in class with us today. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us. Welcome, Rick.
Morning, Matt. That's it. Good morning.
There you go. Yeah.
Sorry about
Dr.
that.
Richard Allen Miller is with us. Yeah. And Captain John Regan is joining us in Dallas. Welcome, Captain John Regan.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning. Let me start this way. I received a call over the weekend and a communique from Dr. Richard Allen Miller that Matt Stein, senior USA Prepares instructor, had passed away. It was sudden. It was unexpected. And every one of us was shocked. And let me just tell the class a little bit more about Matt Stein, if you didn't know. Matt Stein was a designer, an engineer, a green builder. He authored 2 best-selling books. He actually authored more than that, but 2 of them are bestsellers. One of the bestsellers is When Disaster Strikes, Comprehensive Guide to Emergency Planning and Crisis Survival, published 2011. The other bestseller was When Technology Fails, a manual for self-reliant sustainability and surviving the long emergency, published in 2008. And a young children's book called Geronimo the Frog. And Matt Stein was a National Merit Scholar. He graduated MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He majored in mechanical engineering. And he was a recipient of the Straight T Award. That's MIT's highest athletic honor. Matt's appeared on many broadcasts, radio broadcasts. He's been a repeat guest on Fox News, MSNBC, Coast to Coast AM, Gary Null, Alex Jones, and the Tom Hartman Show. He was an active mountain climber. He served as a guide and an instructor for blind skiers. And he's written several articles on the subject of sustainable living, and he was a guest columnist for the Huffington Post. His passing was an absolute shock to us, all of us, and every single email that I received here at USA Prepares started out the same way with the same 3-letter word. Wow. Wow. And that was my response as well. I sat back in the chair, couldn't believe it. Because of Matt's pursuit of health. He was a happy guy. Well, Captain John Regan, would you like to share some of your thoughts about Matt Stein and as you remember him, please?
Yes, and I was just thinking back. The last time I had an opportunity to see Matt was at the last Get Prepared Expo. And we were sitting there in the author row section. I was sitting with Rich. To my left was Rick and Matt, and on the other side of Matt was John Moore. And I was thinking, wow, to have a group of people like that in one place where you can just sit down and talk such a variety of important subjects was just absolutely amazing. What I remember most impactful to me was Matt's presentation on the 400 Chernobyls. because that gave me such a different perspective on what would happen after a global grid down scenario. And later on, I would tie that with the prophecies in Matthew 24 and in Daniel. And what that did for, current living is, I don't like to bet against prophecy. So when I hear the ramblings now, whether it's about Korea or, something, going to go in the Middle East or Russia, China, I'm not worried about that right now, because we can't have what we consider World War III, that scenario, because that would result in a grid down with, this tremendous amount of radiation afterwards, and we wouldn't be in a situation where the prophecies could unfold. So I'm firmly convinced that we won't see that until the end of the 7 years, which in the prophecies is called the abomination that causes desolation, which starts in Jerusalem. On the one hand, he just let me be more relaxed about the current situation. Not that we don't have lots of concerns about what's going on out there, but at the same time, it changed my view on trying to prepare for the grid down situation and realizing that there's that element beyond just being able to do things like we used to do before the technology, being able to grow our own food and preserve it and all those other skills that we've essentially lost today. And I still haven't come up with a way how we would survive that radiation, and I don't believe that it really is survivable. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be prepared for all kinds of things, especially in even the 2 to 3 month range. And like I say, I'm just so appreciative for that presentation to just give another picture on preparing, and again, I was able to bounce that against what's in the Bible.
Yeah. Class, if you'd like to call in and remember Matt Stein today, I have a number for you. It's for the instructors. It's not the number you're used to. It is not the number you're used to. Here's a different number. Toll free. 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. Dr. Richard Allen Miller, your thoughts?
Well, where do I begin? Well, first, thank you, Aaron Hoos, for introducing me to Matt. Thank you, Josh Thatcher, his son, for encouraging Matt to get to know me. Josh was already a fan and encouraged Matt to get to know me, and that's when Matt and I, started the Urban Survival Skills Workshops. And my YouTube channel, which is easily found on my website, has a tribute to Matt. If you go to my homepage, up in the very right-hand corner are 3 little tiny icons. One is Facebook, another is YouTube, and then Twitter. If you go to the YouTube channel, which is the center one, it will take you to my YouTube channel, which is different than my website. And it'll start right off with Matt introducing a major workshop that we did down in Reno, Nevada back in 2012. And that workshop was mostly attended by military, with Kerry Cassidy and others that were there, radio. I think Lauren Fenton, others were there. And it was documented and made into a series of movies that are on Facebook that you may enjoy, getting a flavor of Matt and my contributions on what's coming next down the pike. Other than that, I'm hoping that Mary joins us, Josh Thatcher. Mary was his girlfriend, and You know, I had spoke with Matt a couple of days earlier, and he was on the hills doing downhill skiing. He was in the snow. He was the health nut part of our little group doing his weird fiber cereals and things like that. And so to have him disappear or die this quickly and unexpectedly was, that's where the wow came in. It was completely, and that's what I want everybody to remember. Life is very precious and very fleeting. And there is, in most cases, no warning. So you should always do like Matt or I and try to live for the moment and enjoy the very breath that you have. It's a blessing.
Right. And, we had an expo class. Actually, we had a number of expos, and the farmhouse was the rally point. And many showed up here at the farmhouse. And we would have breakfast or lunch or dinner or all of those together. And around even after the expo closed down, we'd come back to the farmhouse and we'd be laughing and scratching and having, just a great time. And try to imagine this. Try to imagine those who are broadcasters at USA Prepares, those who are used to talking, not afraid of speaking in public, those who, can stand on stage, no problem at all. Put all of us around a table and have 7 different topics going on, and having each one of us involved in all 7 topics simultaneously. At the same time, joking and poking fun and just having a blast. That's what it was like. And I've got to tell you, this morning I was getting a beverage, before the broadcast, a warm beverage, and I was remembering that. I remember that a lot in our kitchen, around the island, around the kitchen table. And I remember Matt making breakfast. We might have, since there's so many, we had 5 sofa beds, guest rooms. The house was packed. It was literally packed. And we would be having breakfast, and Matt would have a special meal. We would have not something we normally wouldn't do would be donuts. We normally wouldn't have that, but we had English muffins, donuts, cereal. Matt would have a special bag of nuts and fruit and trail mix. I mean, he was the healthiest of us all. Yeah, and that's how I remember him, laughing and joking with us. And I'll tell you what he called me when we come back. Class, today we're remembering Matt Stein, USA Preparedness instructor. And if you'd like to call in, 866-582-9933. Well, when I start the broadcast, I introduce the instructors. And so, for example, I would say, welcome, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Welcome, Captain John Regan. Well, when it was Matt Stein who was on the air with me, I would say, welcome, Matt. Well, the funny story about that is Matt was going to be on another radio show, and he and the other broadcaster were doing some pre-broadcast discussions, probably days before. And the first meeting, the broadcaster said, "Oh yeah, I know you. Yeah, you're welcome, Matt. Yeah, I know. You're welcome, Matt." So there, Matt and I had this running joke about that for years, and Matt referred to me not as Vincent, but my cousin Vinny, not cousin Vinny, my cousin Vinny. We had a wonderful, wonderful relationship, and class, I hope that many of you, all of you, will get to have the same kind of a relationship that Dr. Richard Allen Miller and I have, that Captain John Regan and I have, that Rich Scheben and I have, and Dr. Norman Shealy and I have, and so many others, Kyle in Montana. I mean, I can't name all the instructors that I have these great relationships with. It's really wonderful, and I'm truly, truly fortunate. Rick, any comments?
Yeah, yes. Matt was the one that introduced you to me.
That's right. Yep. And Josh,
so it's his fault. We'll blame it on Rio.
It's his fault, yes. And his son, Josh Satcher, was the one who introduced Matt to you. And I talked with Josh about that, and he said, Dad, you've got to meet this guy. He's something else. And Josh was really impressed.
That has a lot of interpretations, man.
Yeah, that's why I said it. That's why I said it that way.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, Captain John Regan.
Well, if he's not going to say something, I will. It's nice to see and hear you again, too, sir.
Yeah, he's talking about you, John.
I'm talking about John. I haven't talked to John Regan in a long time either. It's nice to hear your voice.
Thanks. It's been quite a while since we used to talk fairly frequently when I was substituting guest hosting for Vincent, and that hasn't happened on a Thursday in a long time. Mostly been working on trying to recover my health myself. But I'm glad you brought up the Welcome Matt story. It was sometime after the expo that I got to guest host, and I've waited years to have the opportunity to welcome Matt, and I don't remember exactly what we talked about that day, but with Matt, it was always going to be a great show.
Mm-hmm.
And
so, are you telling me that you were looking forward to saying "Welcome, Matt"? Is that what you're telling us?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's really hard to envision us, in the kitchen. Ed from Florida, Joe from Michigan. It's so neat to be able to meet, the faculty, not all the faculty, but, some of the faculty all in one place at one time. And class, I've got to tell you, the guys and gals who donate their time, who volunteer to be on USA Prepares, are some of the brightest people on the planet. They really are. And Matt Stein was no exception. And Captain John Regan, what you said about 400 Chernobyls is absolutely right. And his books, When Technology Fails, When Disaster Strikes, they are very important. But I've got to tell you, 400 Chernobyls is an absolute wake-up. 400 Chernobyls. So we're talking about Matt Stein today, and Senior USA Preparedness Instructor. With us are two other Senior USA Preparedness Instructors, Dr. Richard Allen Miller and Captain John Regan. John, I think you're absolutely right about the importance of the 400 Chernobyls. And I remember Matt Stein talking about, for the price of a B-1 bomber, we could really protect our power grid from EMPs, whether they be man-made, an attack on the United States, or whether they be from a massive coronal ejection. And it's darn near impossible to get those who could make a difference to make a difference. How about just one less B-1 bomber? How about that? And protect our power grid. Because if the grid goes down, so many people will die so quickly. Imagine those who are on medication that they absolutely, positively must have. Think about that. And where would you be able to get the medication? Captain, your thoughts?
We've talked about this for hours on the radio. Even if we took care of that problem for the United States. That's only about 100 of those reactors. We've got the others worldwide. And even get beyond that, it doesn't even have to be an EMP or CME to cause the problem. For here in the United States, if you know the right half dozen or so large transformers, all you have to do is take those out. And this year I came out and talked about these new hypersonic missiles that are getting ready to come online. Russia, China, and us are the big three in those. You don't even have to have a warhead on those missiles. Just the kinetic energy from the speed they're traveling. You could use those not only against those transformers, but you could take out entire power stations. And if you lose that grid, this is where you can have those really long discussions. You lose everything. You no longer have the ability to run your refineries, so you lose the primary source of fuel for our vehicles, including the tractors. If you have a crop in the field, it's not going to get harvested, and even if you had fuel on the farm and you harvested the crop, you don't have the fuel for getting it to the processing, getting it to market. You don't have the refrigeration to preserve things along the way. The whole supply chain collapses. And this was one of my earlier revelations, having lived there in the Ozarks and getting to know a little bit about the Amish there. They have a fantastic skill set, and they have intact communities, unlike most of the rest of us in the world. And they would have a difficult time living in the grid down society because they are still reliant on the supply chain. They use a lesser technology, but it's still there.
Just to make an exclamation point out of what you just said. You're absolutely right. Many people in our neck of the woods work with the Amish, and we've seen what they do. And you're right, they have tremendous skills, but they still buy nails, they still buy saws, they still buy air hoses, they still buy bearings and grease. And so, if the Amish are going to build a building, and you say, okay, great, glad you're here. Got any nails? That's a problem. Just one item such as nails is a showstopper. Because you can't fasten the siding, whether it be plank siding, lap siding, 4x8 sheets of siding, whatever it is, you can't fasten it without nails or screws or glue or something. Okay? That's a problem. And roofing. Roofing won't stay on by itself, whether it be steel roofing, whether it be composite shingles, clay tiles, whatever it is still is attached. So you're absolutely right. And we are all in the same boat, whether we're Amish, living off the grid normally, or whether we're tied to the grid, as many of us are in the United States and around the world. Without electricity, without refrigeration, we are really in trouble. Do you have statistics off the top of your memory as to how long we would survive with the grid down situation and what percentage of us would be gone in a number of months?
It's a greater than 99% fatality rate. Currently in the supply chain, there's roughly a 60-day supply of food. So if you can exhaust that, which is questionable because you might not be able to distribute it, just from the food supply, then the amount of time between no food and starving to death, you're talking, basically a 3-month window. the part that we typically don't talk about is somewhere along the lines in there. There's another food supply, which is us. Somewhere along the line, the cannibalism starts. And this happened, I think it was Ukraine or Russia in 1921. People would sell their dead relatives as food. I mean, it's a very, very bad situation that we can't even imagine. So when you add humans as part of the food chain, maybe you could get another month or so out of that. But no matter how you slice and dice it, you've only got a very short window. And then depending on what time of the year it is, there's other factors because if it's, there during wintertime, you can't even get more food planted until spring. Plus, you also have the problem if it's wintertime. The temperatures don't even have to get that cold before people can start dying of exposure. So definitely the closer you live to the equator, where you've got a warmer climate and your year-round food supply, the better off you'd be in that regard. Here in the United States, it's a grid down situation. Be very difficult to survive.
Mm-hmm. Rick, your thoughts?
Matt put it succinctly when he said there's 3 minutes for air, 3 days for water, and 3 weeks for food.
Mm-hmm.
A zombie is East LA when they're out of food. And panic aside, the first two things that are going to kill everybody are dehydration and exhaustion. That's what we saw at Katrina. There is no city in America other than possibly Chattanooga right now that has more than 3 days of food on hand at any given moment. And most all of the trucking services that we use today use electronic ignition, which is sensitive and affected by an EMP strike. The EMP strike does not even have to be man-made. It could be like a Carrington effect that came off the sun. Right now, our sun is in a solar minimum, but Pakistan is bragging that they have enough to stop and shut down America. The problem that nobody said is that if the grid goes down because our primary capacitor is blown, it's going to take a minimum of 3 years to replace that grid, and before it's back up and functioning correctly. Texas has its own grid. The state of California is about to be given to China as a metaphor. And I can tell you that if I lived in New York and the grid's been down a week, 7 days, and no water, and you want to take a bath for hygiene, and you're 15 floors up, having to walk that 15 floors and have to go to the bathroom, exactly how is the sewage going to work? Nobody's prepared. And that's what Matt's entire life was devoted to, is trying to make people aware of just how fragile our lifestyle and way of being is precariously balanced on the New Madrid fault line, which has 21 Daiichi-like reactors, GE, and they're all leaking.
Rick, when you and Matt and I would travel, if we're on the road and there was a seminar event, a preparedness convention near Missouri, and we rallied here at the farm and got together, and then we would travel to that event. What kinds of reaction did you see those coming back from Matt's seminar, coming to the table that you and Matt and I shared at these conventions? What is your recollection of what people said after they heard Matt speak?
2 words: empowered and sobering.
Yeah.
And it's time all of us realize the importance of what Matt was trying to put across. And my hope is that his passing serves as a reminder of how fragile life is.
And Captain John Regan, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, and I will be right back. So, class, if you look at when technology fails and when disaster strikes, 2 of Matt's best-selling books, it'll give you the information to get started in preparing. And I was reading some of the reviews on Amazon.com during the break, and what I noticed was that people were saying, this is a great book, it helps you get started, but you need to prepare before these events happen. Captain John Regan, your thoughts?
I think what I've said before is you can't wait for the accident to start to put on your seatbelt.
Yes.
If you're not ready for it, you suffer the consequences. And unfortunately, we're going to be suffering the consequences. And, in my expertise, talking about the financial situation of the country, we're getting ready to experience that at a level that hasn't been seen since the Great Depression. I would expect next year we'll probably see the admission that we're entering a recession, and it'll probably be another year or 2 after that before people realize this isn't your typical recession. Just like in 1929, the stock market crash, they didn't really know how bad things were, and then the depth of the Depression happened a few years later. And unfortunately, it's human nature. We don't do things until the disaster happens. I watched that happen here in Texas with Hurricane Harvey last year. And, living about 300 miles from the coast, I wasn't worried about the wind and the storm surge when the hurricane comes to ground. But I know that that's the first strike from a hurricane. You have to also know what the path is, because if it travels slowly, you can get flooded well inland from a hurricane. And I got on the news a few hours before it was due for landfall just to see if it was coming towards Dallas. And when I saw that path, coming into Texas, making a loop, going back out into the Gulf, and then coming back up to the Southeast Texas area, I'm going, wow, that type of slow-moving storm is going to cause massive amounts of flooding. Mm-hmm. And because the government didn't say, get out of there, lots of people were stranded with lots of water around them. Mm-hmm. And, I would have more hope if I'd read even one instance, somebody seeing what I saw and saying, I saw what was coming and I got out of there. Unfortunately, many thousands of people, risked their lives because they just stayed put. And, that's my fear for, many of these situations, because we're not devoting any time to get ready beforehand. When it does happen, we'll have to deal with the aftermath when it gets here.
And that's what Matt was preaching over and over and over again. The time to get ready is before. The time to stock your refrigerator is before you open the door and go, shoot, there's nothing to eat. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Class, we have all lines are almost full. I think Nathan is really busy doing many things. So I'll put you on as soon as I can read who you are. And so when you call in, the engineer will answer the phone and say, "Hi, may I have your name? Where are you calling from?" And he'll put you on hold. So if you've called in, just stand by, and Nathan will get to you during the top of the hour commercial announcements. We're talking about Matt Stein. Captain John Regan's with us. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. And we're talking about the kindness of Matt Stein and the impact he had on us and the footprints he left. Class today is a 2-hour special on remembering Matt Stein, senior USA preparedness instructor, engineer, brilliant man. He died last week, and we have the lines full with those who want to remember Matt. Guineith Isaacs is with us and just joining us live in Australia. Guineith, you have a long delay. It's about a 3-second delay. So I'll be quiet when you say your comments about Matt Stein. Guineith Isaacs.
Hello, Vincent. How are you today?
Yes.
I just wanted to say that even though Matt is dead, he's not gone, because each one of us, we have a soul, and that soul continues on in the other world. And not only does his work continue, but his soul it lives on into the future. And I believe that he probably was a Christian man, that he was somebody who had a belief in God, and because of that, he's going on into a better place. He's gone on to heaven.
Guineith, Matt Stein told me that he was born Jewish, but he became Christian. That's what he told me.
Yeah.
Privately. Yeah. This is Guineith Isaacs live in Australia. Guineith.
Yep. Okay. This is this delay that we have. It takes a whole 3 seconds for my voice to get all the way over to America, which is amazing, but it's annoying as well, and it is often a lot shorter. But what I'm saying is, with myself, I know that I've been talking about my past lives. There's parts of me that are in the ghost realm, and I've lived, I grew up in a haunted house, and I've never ever been frightened of ghosts except when I was a very, very little child. And I know that there are people who just don't have a body anymore. And so if there's family members that sense the presence of Matt Stein around, he's there, he's just making sure that everything's okay. Does that make sense, Vincent? Sure.
And, my mom and dad are no longer with us here at the farm. My mother-in-law and father-in-law have passed on as well. And I talk to them, and I can feel their presence. Guineith, I've got a full, almost a full board of telephone callers who have been waiting quite a long time. I really appreciate your call. Thank you for staying up late to share your thoughts about Matt Stein. Guineith Isaacs, USA preparedness instructor. Thank you, Guineith.
You have a lovely evening. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. You too.
Okay.
I hit the wrong button. I am so sorry. I just dropped Craig in Michigan. Grace Thorn is with us. Yes, Grace Thorn is just joining us. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead. Hi. Okay, Grace Thorn's with us.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was just going to say that I remember the time I got to be in your home with
with the instructors you talked about earlier, Rick Scheben and John Regan, and John Stettmiller was there, and Ann Dakin and her husband. And one night, Matt started telling stories, like when you were talking about everybody being around the table, and it was like, he was like, I'm talking and I can't shut up, but we were all laughing so hard at his stories that no one could say anything. And I have a picture of that I will always cherish. And I don't know if you don't have that picture, I'll make you a copy and send it to you. You would love it. And there's another picture that I have of Rick and Matt, and it's at the expo during a break, and they're holding their snack, which is a banana. And so you can imagine that's such a funny picture, and that one hangs on Rick's wall in his home. But I remember Matt as being such a gentleman. He was so calm and collected, and he's the one that you'd want to be in your lifeboat if disaster did strike. He was just always so calm. And his two books are so full of knowledge on what to do and information on just everyday subjects that even without a disaster are so helpful, so useful. But I always liked listening to Rick and Matt together because I could understand everything they talked about. Sometimes I don't understand what Rick talks about, but when they talked, they were always so good together. And they tried to inform people by speaking truth. And truth is the most powerful weapon in the world, truth. And the truth that they were trying to teach, I think, is there's few people that want to hear it. Few people that do hear it and follow it, but at least they were following their calling, and they were speaking the truth.
Well, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right that many people do not want to hear the truth. And the proof of that is we are not number one in radio broadcasting. If they wanted to hear the truth, we'd be higher up in ratings. And if they wanted to know how to prepare, we'd be higher up in ratings. But many people, I mean, you can have a bunch of guys running around in short pants chasing a ball, and you can get 65,000 people to pay $50 a piece to watch these guys run around and chase a ball for 3 hours.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I know. It's amazing what people want to hear and see and do, and I don't know.
You're absolutely right. Grace, I've got Craig in Michigan, and I accidentally dropped him, and he's back. But I wanted to thank you for calling in and sharing your thoughts with us. And I'd love to have you back on the air and talk with our broadcast classroom about what happened to education. Is that something that you're up for?
Well, I don't know what happened. I think I know what happened, but I can give my opinion on what I think happened.
There you go. Let's do that. Grace, thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you, Vincent, for doing what you do.
You're so welcome. Craig, in Michigan, welcome. You're on with Dr. Richard Allen Miller and me, and Captain John Regan, remembering Matt Stein.
Hi, Vincent.
Hey.
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air.
Okay. As another vendor and instructor, we generally don't have much chance to be able to gather together with people like somebody else like myself or Matt. But we did on occasion sometimes go out to dinner afterwards to various restaurants in the area. I do remember the last time we got together, Matt and I, there were some other vendors. I think we were with Morgan and some other people. We actually went to it was in New Orleans, and we went to one of these restaurants that had, shall we say, various swamp meats. And needless to say, I got sick on something that night, but he wasn't with, we were actually talking about various things, and Matt was always the type that would be very, not agreeable, but tolerant of everybody else's views, and he would just sort of have this smile about him and look, and the way he responded, even if you could tell he wasn't quite agreeing with you, he was rather a sort that would not even show it, really. I don't know how to describe that either, but he was also talking about how he was, at that time, we were about ready to have the eclipse that we had this past year, and he was going to be going to see some friends in Oregon at the time to be able to see the full eclipse. And I didn't really get a chance to see him since then, so it's been a while. As other vendors, we just didn't get a chance, especially if we work alone. We don't just get a chance to get up and see each other's speech or even go to their tables much. So I don't have much to add. It was really shocking to hear of his passing. And I do wish his family and his girlfriend the best.
Rick Miller?
Have a YouTube that captures Matt in full Monty. It was extremely well done by Terry Hitt, our webmaster, and Matt and I have like 2 days, 8 hours of 2 days, 16 hours of off-the-grid videos that we made on Vimeo. They're on Vimeo if you want to watch them. Matt, during that period, we had in Reno, it was mostly military, and so the questions that were asked were solid. I mean, they were like the next level that Matt and I dream of, because mostly when you present the event about to happen, most people aren't prepared, and so it's engrossed mind, with nobody really knowing, pandemic, flood, a plate shift, whatever. All of it is going to happen. And Matt, his approaches in detail are exceptional. And that was a result of his book. And then these videos that we made where military came in and was asking, okay, if the grid's down and we're doing this with our food, now what do we do with the refrigeration? He would get into detail. And so that's what I'm hoping. My YouTube channel, when you open it, it will come right on with Matt doing a talk. And I'm hoping that this video and others will also be on my YouTube channel, because I'm getting a flood of people right now. Randy Curley called me last night. Randy was Arcade Gun Show that you and I and Matt did. So, there's going to be a lot of people.
Welcome, Rich Shealy.
Well, thank you, Vincent Finelli. Rick, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I miss Matt, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm calling. I don't want to make this about anybody else. I'm just going to speak real quick. I met him at your house, Vincent, and boy, he was a caring person. He was a great listener. I talked to him a couple times after that, emailed each other a few times. And I'll tell you one thing about Matt is that he loved his country. He was a patriot. He enjoyed helping others. It was very obviously that he stuck his neck out there for outside-the-box ideas and solutions. And that's kind of what we expect from people who are on USAPrepares.com. We're not perfect, but we try to help others with, because as our freedoms and liberties diminish because of political correctness and the so-called powers that be, people are looking for plan Bs in life. And I think Matt emulated that. He, so many people out there say, well, that won't work, or that'll never change, that'll never happen. Matt made a difference in America making outside-the-box ideas work. And I know, whether it's an aneurysm or whatever happens in our lives and our deaths, this is, people use it as a cliche, a euphemism, a metaphor, but it really should be a motto, and that is that life is short. And we have to do whatever we can, not just to help ourselves, but to help our fellow man. And I think Matt was an icon for that. So if Matt's family's listening, you should be proud of him. He really made a big difference for America, and that's the best memory that we can all have. Vince?
Yes, you're absolutely right. I really like what you said about life is short. Life is way too short. And you're right, Matt made a big difference. And I keep coming back to 400 Chernobyls. I keep coming back to that. He warned us about the stupidity of these nuclear reactors. He warned us what could happen. And class, it's really simple. So if the grid goes down, the cooling system for the nuclear reactors go down, of which there are about 400, 104 to be exact in the United States. If the cooling system goes down, the reactors melt down as they did in Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, Pennsylvania, and Fukushima, Japan. All certain meltdowns. And the cooling system is absolutely critical to prevent a meltdown. And the cooling system is a system that's hooked up to the grid. So if the grid goes down, the cooling system goes down, the cooling system goes down, the reactor melts down. Contaminates the underground water supply, contaminates the air, contaminates the waterways around the reactor. So to prevent that, there is a system in place. There's a generator, a standby generator, ready to go should the grid go down to keep the cooling system operational, the pumps operational. But there's only, at most, 30 days worth of fuel, typically less than that. And if the grid goes down, as Captain John Regan said, the refineries can't produce diesel fuel to keep the generators running. So without fuel, we've got 30 days, but it takes really about a year to shut down a nuclear reactor, according to Matt Stein. Therein lies the problem. How do you keep the reactors cool without the grid? And the whole world has reactors that are based on the grid. Captain John Regan's with us. I'm Vincent Finelli, and we're remembering Matt Stein. Captain John Regan, did you have some comments that you'd like to make? I've got some callers ready to go.
Yeah, I just, like everybody else, it was such a shock. Like I say, it happened so quickly, and none of us have a guarantee that we even finish today.
Right.
You've been putting things off. Just tell your loved ones that you love them. And that's it.
That's so important to do, and you're absolutely right. And try to be kind to everybody you can, because you really never know. You really never know. Randy Curley's with us. Randy Curley is with RK shows, RK gun shows, RK prepper shows, and Matt Stein and Rick Miller, and Craig Douglas, and Joel Wallach, and Brandy Brogdon, and other USA preparedness instructors have all been to the RK prepper shows, speaking, seminar leading, and we've all had a wonderful time. Randy Curley, welcome. You're on the air.
Hello, Vince. Good to talk to you again. I haven't been on the show circuit for a year now. I had a bad car accident exactly a year ago this week, and I was in the ICU for 5 weeks and broke my neck, my spine, and my hip, and all my ribs and my jaw. And so I was in the hospital a total of, I guess 4 months. And then I did a physical rehab and just released from that a week ago. When the word first got out about my accident, I was still in the ICU. One of the first people to call me was Matt Stein. And I was in pretty bad shape at the time. But his phone call meant so much to me, and it really improved my spirits, and it made me want to live, because for a while there I didn't think I was going to. He's one of the smartest, most even-tempered people I've ever met. I spent a lot of time with Matt at shows, and afterwards we'd have a couple drinks. The first time I met him was in Huntsville, Alabama, at the hotel there, where the Von Braun Center, where we had the show, and he and I had dinner and some drinks the night before the show. He was just a fascinating guy, one of the most intelligent people that I've ever met, and one of the nicest guys I've ever met. As you know, Vince, I was a federal prosecutor for years and worked on the Challenger investigation, and so I knew people like Neil Armstrong, Sally Ride, Richard Feynman, David Margolis, people like that, just outstanding, great individuals, and I would put Matt Stein right up there with those people.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so, Randy, I'm sorry I didn't call you because I didn't know until you just said it right here live on the air that you had been hospitalized and you were in the accident. This is all new to radio? Me. Excuse me?
Hello?
Yeah. Randy Curley just had mentioned that he was in a very serious car accident, spent 4 months in the hospital, and I didn't know that.
Lost radio?
No, you're good. You're good, Rick. Randy, I really appreciate you calling. Yeah. Rick, we can hear you. I really appreciate you calling in, Randy, and letting us know. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us?
No, I just, I'm doing okay now. I'm up, kind of a walking miracle. I guess the doctors thought I would never walk again, but I'm up walking, just had my hip replaced. I'm doing good. Yeah, a lot of people didn't know about this, so it's not surprising that you didn't hear.
No, I did
find out. Matt did find out, and his call meant a lot to me, and knowing him was a special part of my life. I just wanted to share that with you all.
Wonderful. I'm glad you had that experience with him, and that's the kind of experience that all of us had with him. And that's why we're doing this broadcast, remembering Matt Stein. Randy, thank you so much for calling in. How's Randy Curley?
All right. Thank you, Vince. Say hi to Rick and everybody else.
Sure. You just did. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Kyle in Montana. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, Vince. And guys, I, like you, I'm sad to mourn the loss of Matt. I didn't know him that much. I was only on the air with him a couple of times. I called in and was talking with him, but I had two thoughts that just impressed me, and it's kind of like when I first met you, Vince. It really reminded me of that. One is that even though you're really intelligent, you're humble, and Matt was so humble. It would just even over the air, you felt like I've told you, he's just another guy that came from the same family almost, So I really appreciated that about him. And like I said, one of my big regrets is that I still haven't been able to get back there and meet you and your wife and Matt and Rick. And I'd like to be able to see all of you guys, John, Regan, and I've talked to John on the phone many times, and you too. But anyway, it's just, Matt reminded me he was always in the front. He was a lead dog, and they always say, if you ain't the lead dog, the scenery never changes. And so I like the fact that Matt was always right out in front and trying to get people to expand their thinking and trying to bring them to a point of realization that life as you know it may not continue, and what you can do to help improve that, here are some ideas for it. And that was the way Matt came across to me the 2 or 3 times I think I was on the phone with him on the program. But anyway, I just wanted to, if his family's listening, just know that he is missed, and we are so grateful that he knows the Lord and was a Christian, and someday we will see him again.
Yeah, very, very well said. And I just have one comment to make. Since I'm here most often 5 days a week, I knew that this may happen. I knew there was a possibility that we might lose an instructor or more than one instructor. I have to tell you, I was not looking forward to this type of a broadcast. I'm honored to do it, but I wasn't looking forward to it, and I didn't know what would happen when we did this type of broadcast. But here's what I did know. With absolute certainty, I knew that Kyle in Montana, USA Preparedness instructor, would call in. I knew that Grace Thorn in Oklahoma would call in. I knew that Craig in Michigan would call in. I knew that Rick would be there, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. I knew that Rich Scheben would be there. I knew that Captain John Regan would be there. I was absolutely certain of all that. Absolutely. Even though I didn't know what the circumstances would be, I knew that this would happen. And I knew it would happen very much the way it had happened. With the names I've mentioned, reflecting on the past and the positive memories of the past. Kyle, I wish you could have been there in the kitchen with the faculty. It was something. It was, it puts a smile on my face thinking about just how kind the ladies and gentlemen of USA Prepares are to each other and to people they don't even know. It's quite overwhelming. Rick, do you have a comment on that?
I'll tell you.
Okay, go ahead.
I have one comment quick, Vince.
Yes.
It's whether you realize it or not, all of this has been possible because of you. And we just, all of us out here, I know all of us that I've talked to, John Regan, and I've talked to other instructors. Sorry about the dog. But anyway, we all know that your humility, your determination, your wisdom in the way, and your knowledge and understanding about how to run all these things, that's why it's possible. And we are very grateful. And when we lose one of the stool legs like Matt Stein, we just know that the rest of the people are going to be around to try to fill that void, to try to keep it all up and going as long as we can. And so I just want to thank Rick and John Regan and you, especially you, Vince, because you've been a good friend to me over the years. I am so grateful to know you. In case we ever, the only chance that we ever have to meet again is in the air, So I think we need to make sure that we say the things that need to be said before something like this happens to Matt Stein, it's coming to all of us. So don't, the words that I've got to say are that don't miss the opportunity to say the things that are necessary that you wish you would have said. And I'll hang up and let somebody else get on the line, Vince, for the rest of the time. But again, thank you so much for all you do.
Joey in Michigan, USA Preparedness instructor, is joining us. Welcome, Joey.
Hey, Vince. Hey, Rick. John. Sorry to have to be calling in under these circumstances. Just like to, the few thoughts I've had about Matt
like when you sent me the email, I responded as, I just can't even digest that. Because Matt was the guy I figured be the last man standing. He took his health very serious, the kind of food he ate, the way he ate. You know, could climb a mountain, rock climb. He did it all. And he was that Mercedes person that acted like a Ford Escort, because he never hugged the limelight. You know, be it these, what do you want to call them, seminars, gatherings. Me, him, and Rick, we'd be eating breakfast, and out came all the vitamins, out came everything. But what a humble man as well, the fact that he always took the time to answer your question, and if you gave him a question, it required a little extra thought about it, he always got back to you about it. So, I mean, how do you even think, you know, it's like you said a little bit earlier, you always expected to have to do this, but who, and nobody knows what time their clock is up. I hate to say it that way, but I mean, visually, that's how I see it. And I'm just grateful I got to meet a person like Matt, and he pushes you in a direction, even when you don't know you're being pushed, because one of the first books I bought at your first seminar I attended back in 12, he couldn't be there because his wife was sick, and Rick had his book. And I said, why do I want that book? And Rick said, oh, you want this book? And after I read that book, I knew exactly why I wanted that book, and always looked forward, when technology fails, was that book, and always looked forward to meeting Matt. The next semester, or the next time you had a gathering, I bought the second book. So, I mean, those are the little bits and pieces, and we would all be sitting there, you, me, Craig, Rick, we're having dinner, and we just always got along. It's like we were a family that didn't even know we belonged together, and we just, because of you, just like Kyle said, because of you, you brought us all together, and we met people because of you that we would never even imagine we were going to meet. And that's a good part of this. You know, we'll all learn from this loss. As Kyle would say, don't take anything for granted, and take the extra minute or 2 minutes to say thank you, and be more humble, because a humbling experience is what people tend to remember long after you're gone. And really, that's all I have to say. So thanks for giving everybody the opportunity to share our little Matt experiences and how priceless they are.
Yeah. Joey, thank you for the kind words. And you're right. Getting a chance to meet the faculty of USA Prepares is an absolute treat.
It's a privilege. It's more than a treat. It's a privilege, because you become one of them.
That's right. That's right. And I don't mean that in any way other than saying I believe I am the most fortunate person on the planet, because I get a chance to meet all of the instructors, every single one. And words really fail me at this point when I talk about the importance to my life of the faculty of USA Prepares. We refer to them as the faculty, not guests, not radio guests. No, they're way more than guests. They are family, and they are faculty. And they're all volunteers, every single one of them. What a privilege. But we need to do it again. We need to have more events where you can physically meet the events. Craig Douglas in Michigan, thank you. Randy, Curly, thank you. Grace Thorn in Oklahoma, thank you. Joey, thank you. Dr. Richard Allen Miller, thank you. Kyle, thank you. And Captain John Regan, thank you for being with us today.